Hey everybody, it's Dominic from the Primetime Treasure eBay Store and YouTube channel. Welcome back to another bleary-eyed 4 o'clock in the morning episode with me. This one I'm going to talk about a really important subject that a lot of people ask me about, which is how to ship big and bulky electronics. Big and bulky electronics, depending on what it is, can be some of the most profitable type of items that you can sell on eBay. A perfect example is what I'm going to show you right now. If you go down to the link below in my description section, you'll see where I picked this up last week at a garage sale. This is a Pioneer 301 CD disc player. So when this is plugged in, and I show this in the video, this opens up and a carousel comes around kind of like a jukebox, and you put the CDs in and it plays 301 CDs. Really cool item, but as you can see, big and bulky. It's not super heavy, but it is long, it is wide, and it is it is something that has quite a bit of depth to it. So figuring out how to ship it out can be a challenge if you just have the regular size boxes around your house. So one of the things that I'm going to suggest to make sure you have boxes that are big enough to sell items like this and ship them is to make sure that once in a while you purchase your bubble wrap, because bubble wrap is a staple item that you're gonna need to have around, that you purchase large bubble wrap rolls from Amazon.com. And I'll show you why that's important. It's because of this right here. Amazon ships their bubble wrap in these enormous boxes like this. And so I would highly suggest hanging on to some of these boxes and using them as storage for your smaller boxes or for some other item that you have in your business that you need to store. Then in a situation like this where you happen to find a big bulky electronic, this is what you could use to pack it in. Now you don't always have to buy your bubble wrap from Amazon, but if you would like to, just go down to the link below in my description section and I'll put some links to the smaller bubble wrap and the large bubble wrap. This is from the Duck brand company, which really does make some terrific bubble wrap. But if you don't want to spend quite as much sometimes on that bubble wrap, you can get it cheaper on eBay. And so when you get it on eBay, though, they're just going to send it to you like this. That's it. It's just come with a a plastic wrapper around it with the address label, and this is how it's going to show up, and you'll get 2 rolls that look like this. But you'll get one giant massive roll when you get it through Amazon. So check that out. If you want a link to get them cheaper on eBay, I'll also put a link down below to a good company that I like to use to get bubble wrap like this. So I'll give you the Amazon option and the eBay option down below with those links. So anyway, the first thing that we're going to need to do before we even put this inside of that box is we need to make sure that we protect it, because there is going to be if we just put it in the way it is, there's going to be too much room for it to move around and it would definitely get damaged. So we want to make sure we protect it. So that's going to be the first step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera off and I am just going to wrap this in bubble wrap, and I'll turn it back on to show you what it looks like. Now before I actually wrap up the entire unit, what I want to make sure that I do is wrap this plug up in some bubble wrap. So I'm just going to do that. This is the smaller bubbles that I'm going to use for that part, but I am going to wrap that up because you don't want it scratching up against the unit as it's moving around. So that's just a little tip, is to make sure you wrap the plug up as well. One more thing before I put the large bubbles around the unit is I want to make sure I just position the plug and the wire properly. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Right here, I am going to take this, I put a little garbage bag tie around it, like something just like this. So that'll keep that nice and organized. I will press it flush against the unit here, and then I'll just put a piece of tape on there to keep it in place. And I'll just take this, I'll put it right around the side, and I'll just put a piece of tape to keep that in place. So this is what it looks like. I just put 2 pieces of invisible tape right here, and that's sufficient to keep it in place. And I put 2 pieces of invisible tape right there just to brace it in. And notice I was careful where I put it. I didn't put it over anything that had any kind of lettering. I made sure I put it over black areas because just want to make sure that when the person peels the tape off, if they peeled it off really fast, that it didn't peel any of the writing off. So we want to avoid that. And for that reason, that's why I use invisible tape and I didn't use like a big 3-inch or 2-inch tape like this. All right, now it's time to pack this up in bubble wrap. Okay, so this is all bubble wrapped. Let me show you what it looks like here. I made sure that I put a double layer of bubble wrap on any areas where it felt a little thin after I pressed down. Make sure you are using the thick, large bubbles and you're not using these, you know, tiny little bubbles like this that I wrapped the plug in. You want to make sure you're using the big, thicker bubbles. So that just is going to make sure that it gives you extra protection. Those are the ones that I showed in the beginning of the video. So, you know, after you put the layers of bubble wrap around it, you just want to make sure you go around and you press. And if you feel any area where the bubble wrap didn't give it sufficient coverage, then you just rip another piece of bubble wrap off, put it on top, and tape it on. So you've got a double layer. Now, for this unit, I wanted to make sure, especially since the beginning has this plastic carousel that comes off, that I put an extra layer of bubble wrap there because the plastic piece is the most vulnerable to cracking during shipping. So I want to try to prevent that as much as possible, so that gets an extra layer as well. Once the bubble wrap is placed around it like this, and I'll just show you all 4 sides, what you want to make sure you do just to keep it nice and sturdy and extra secure, there's the top and there's the bottom, is you want to make sure you tape that all together. I mean, initially as I'm going through it, I'm taping it in overlapping grids with little pieces of invisible tape just to keep it together. But then when it's all said and done, and as I'm kind of going along, I'm using the 3-inch tape gun and I'm just taping everything nice and tight and nice and close. So you definitely want to make sure you're using a 3-inch tape gun for a project like this. I mean, you could use a 2-inch tape gun, but the 3-inch tape gun actually winds up using less tape, and it's you know, it gives you more coverage, and it's just a much more efficient item to use. And I promise you that if you get it, you will thank me 100% for suggesting it to you. So the link to my review of the 3-inch tape gun is down below, as well as the product link to it if you are interested in that as well. Any of these product links that I give, they are affiliate links, so it does help me out a little bit if you wind up purchasing something through there or anything through that link. So just full disclosure on that. But anyway, back to this project. So what we need to do now is we need to get this in the box and see what it looks like. So I'm going to take that Amazon box right here, and here we go, and just going to make sure we open all these flaps. So here's the box, and what I did is on the bottom I laid a flat piece of styrofoam down. I do advise that you're saving pieces of styrofoam around, flat ones and thicker ones, for projects like this. This one I got from a brand new 4K television set that I just brought myself to treat myself for success in reselling business, which is just another point. Make sure you're treating yourself every once in a while. But if you're not doing that, you could also just get styrofoam from you know, department stores, or lots of dumpsters have them just tossed right on the top. You know, they're nice and clean, not dirty or anything like that. So you know, just you know, be creative. If you see boxes around from either purchases that you make sure that you're saving some of that styrofoam. Now the styrofoam there is important because it's going to provide some padding, some extra padded protection from the on the base of the box. Don't be fooled in thinking that the bubble wrap is going to be sufficient in and of itself. So I'm going to lay the CD player on top of that, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay, so here it is, sitting nicely in there. It's a nice, good fit. It's not overly tight or anything like that. I mean, it really fits perfect. Now you can see here I have a little space along the sides, and I want to make sure I put something in there to protect that. Now ideally you would have some styrofoam pieces, but if you don't, I mean, you could use extra bubble wrap, but I've got some styrofoam pieces that I cut out. So I'm just going to slide this one into here like this, and you can see it fits in there really nicely. Just going to push it down, and then I'm going to take this one and do that on the other side, and I will put this back on in a moment to show you what our next steps are. Okay, so we've got that nice piece of styrofoam down there. It just fits that perfectly. And we've got that piece of styrofoam right over there, which fits that perfectly. So there's a smaller amount of space right here and right there. I also want to put a little bit of protection there. But a piece of styrofoam like that is too thick. That's why you have to have styrofoam of different sizes. So I've got these nice little thin sheets, and this actually came as one sheet like this. And I just found this randomly one day and just said, I better pick it up. You never know when I might need it. So always keep that in mind too. If you ever see random shipping supplies, pick them up and keep them. And I think I actually found it in an estate sale. I just picked it up and threw it in my box. But so be creative, because we don't necessarily have to have this styrofoam run the full length of this here. If we just take this, cut it in half, and press one strip down here, that is going to be enough to provide protection, especially since these two sides are adequately covered with styrofoam. So this other piece is going to jam right into here and just kind of slide down into place. So you just want to make sure it's centered in the middle, because that's you know, just where the center of the force is and where all the weight gets distributed. So just push it right down there, and it fits there nice and snugly. So now we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so our next step is to make sure that we're protecting this space and this gap right here. So I just trimmed out another piece of styrofoam and just put it right in here. You can trim styrofoam with thick shear scissors. They will look like this. There are styrofoam cutters that they sell. I will put a link to these shear scissors down below, as well as to a styrofoam cutter, whichever one you prefer. And so we've got this side done, and this side just gonna push down as well. So now we've got both sides covered, and you just want to test your flaps, make sure they're going to close properly, and they will. This one will as well. Just need to just push it down a little bit like that. And so now we've got to basically cover this space right here. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm just breaking down pieces of styrofoam to fill in the space here. And I'm also taking like little wedges like this, and I'm just putting them in the corners just to make sure that, you know, I protect the space there. You can see here I put a little one right in there. And then, you know, sometimes you're just taking like some big bulkier pieces like this that you could break down, you know, and just lay it right here. And, you know, you can see here underneath, you know, I've got a nice long piece of styrofoam that goes right there. You know, put two right there, and just keep working on it until I fill up the space. You know, so I got one right here. I've got one right here. You know, and you want to try to make it look somewhat neat, so when the person opens it up, it, you know, does have somewhat of a professional look to it. You know, you don't want to just throw a bunch of, you know, messy junk in there. So, you know, this is... no, this isn't too bad. Okay, now before I seal this up and seal up the flaps, what I want to make sure is I do not forget to put in the operating instructions and the remote control. Plus there was a little connector here. So what I did is I just put this in like a little sandwich bag. I'm going to wrap it in some bubble wrap. And then I just took this and I just put it so it looks just nice and professional. I put it in a magazine bag and board and just, you know, put a piece of tape on the back. I'll also surround it with some cardboard, and then I'm just going to pack it right here in between the foam pieces. Okay, so here's the manual. I put it inside the two cardboard pieces here. I also wrote on the outside, put a little sticky note on both sides that the manual's inside, just so the person doesn't throw it away into garbage and you know, thinks that it's just padding material. So that's a good thing to do as well. Here it's pretty obvious that this is the remote control, so I'm just gonna tuck this in here. So the manual, I mean, we could just, you know, put it between these two pieces of styrofoam like this, and then the remote control, you know, we could just tuck it in here, and I'll just put a little piece of styrofoam right on top, or some additional bubble wrap right on top. So there we go, it's wedged in there, it's protected with a piece of thick bubbles, and so now I'm going to close these flaps up. Okay, so this is adequately protected at this point. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close the flaps down. So I'll close this one down here, close this one down here, dust that off, this one here, and this one here. Now, what you're going to notice, and this happens once in a while, is because you put all that padding in there, this is not going to completely close the seam. Now we could press it together a little bit. I can't do it totally with the camera, so you know, to get it closer, but there's still going to be a gap there. So to solve that problem, which happens not only on this item, but it will happen on others, is I highly advise that you keep these you know, just pieces of cardboard strips around. And so what you would do is you would just put this right here so that it overlaps. You'll put a piece of tape right here to hold it down, a piece of tape right there to hold it down. So then when you press this down, now you've got protection right there. You've covered the gap, and then you're just going to run a piece of 3-inch tape right over it. I'll show you the finished product in just a second. Okay, so it's all packed up. This is what it looks like. I'll show you what it looks like on that side, what it looks like here, what it looks like on the bottom. Okay, so this is nice and sturdy, and you'll notice that when I shake it, you don't hear anything. I mean, it is solid in there. It is not moving at all. It is so well protected. And that's the advantage of putting all that padding in there, all that styrofoam and all that bubble wrap. And it's obviously light because it's a lightweight product, but it does provide bulk, and it does provide nice, strong padding. So another approach to doing this would be to double box, and I do like to use a double box strategy sometimes, and that prevents you from having to use so much styrofoam and stuff like that. So but you have to make sure you have another box that's big enough for this one to fit inside of, and so that could be challenging to find sometimes. And so in this instance, this is really the main box that I had that would fit this, and so that's why I used this particular strategy. But I will do another video to show the double boxing strategy, which works not only for bulky electronics or big electronics, but it also works for shipping out ceramics, so you know, glass pieces and things like that that can more easily break. But either one of those approaches will work. It really just depends on the situation and what types of supplies you have on hand in terms of which approach you're going to use and which is best for you, what's the size of the item, and what are the dimensions. So the next step is to figure out pricing. So that's another common question that I have is, you know, how much does this stuff generally cost? And well, the answer to that obviously is that it does depend in terms of where we're shipping this to. So I'll give you all that information in a moment. I'm going to check out the different services to find out which is the best option for this, and we'll discuss that in a moment, along with another big and bulky item that I already have packed up that's going to ship out tomorrow. All right, everybody, so let's talk about the different shipping services and costs and options that are available to you when shipping out big, bulky electronic items like this. Now, as a general rule of thumb, you're not going to be able to fit these types of items into any type of flat rate priority box or flat rate FedEx box or something like that. It's just because they're just too big. So what's going to happen is the cost is going to depend on where it's going, so the region of the country, the size of the item, so the dimensions of the box, and also the weight of the item plus the box and all of the packing material that's inside of it. So all those things are things that you have to consider, and you have to anticipate worst case scenario, that it's going to go out, you know, to the farthest possible place in the continental US compared to where you live. So for me living in New York, I have to anticipate that worst case it's going to go out to California or to Washington. And if it doesn't, then great, I save money compared to if it would have went out there. But that's why what you want to do when you list the item is you want to make sure that you set your shipping to give you the maximum level of flexibility once the purchase is made. So you don't want to pin yourself into a particular service. Like, you don't want to say you're going to ship it out priority mail. You want to make sure that you, again, maximize your flexibility afterwards. So what you want to do is select economy shipping, just general economy shipping. It doesn't say the word general, but what I mean is you're not limiting yourself to a particular service like FedEx or to USPS. So it'll say economy shipping up to 10 days, that's the one you want to pick. Now, if you want to upgrade that later, once the person makes the purchase, either because the person wants to pay for that, or because ironically, that winds up being the cheaper option compared to the economy option. Sometimes that actually happens, believe it or not. In that case, the person's going to be very happy, leave you a positive feedback that it got there faster than they anticipated. However, what you cannot do is say that it's going to go priority and then switch it to an economy option, because that winds up saving you money. Now, you're going to set yourself up for a negative feedback and downgrading of your seller status through eBay, both from the negative feedback, and also they are monitoring that now in terms of whether or not you're sticking with the service that you originally picked, in terms of not downgrading it. Again, upgrading it is fine, downgrading it, big no-no. So let's talk about the CD player that I just packed up and showed you. That one's going out to Minnesota, so several states over. The box dimensions were 21 inches by 19 by 16 inches. The weight of it was 21 pounds and 5 ounces. So if I were to have shipped that out priority mail, that would have cost me $44.95, so 45 bucks. If I were to use the USPS's economy option, which is the parcel post, that would wind up costing me $33.72. So that's obviously something that sounds like a better option. If we go over to FedEx, though, FedEx is even better. FedEx's economy shipping option is known as Smart Post. That takes up to 7 days, and that would have cost me $29.55 to ship it out that way. However, their home delivery service, which takes 3 days, that one cost $26.39. So guess which one I picked? I picked FedEx home delivery. That one makes the most sense. Person's going to be very happy when they get it in 3 days as opposed to an anticipated 10. As long as the item gets there okay, that sets you up for a nice positive feedback. The great thing about FedEx too is if you ask them, they will ship it in with a fragile sticker all over the box for free. They won't charge you extra for that. If you try to get a fragile sticker stuck onto it from USPS, they're going to charge you 10 bucks for that. So that's a good thing also through FedEx. The disadvantage from FedEx is that insurance is limited if you're packing it up yourself, whereas with the United States Postal Service, there's really no restrictions there. You will get options to purchase insurance through there. You would get automatic a certain level of insurance, either $50 to $100 if you pick priority mail. So whereas there's again a lot more restrictions placed on you if you go FedEx. So it does depend which service you pick in terms of what insurance options are available to you. All right, so let's talk about one other big, bulky, heavy item that I have that's going out today. This is not anywhere near as big as the CD player that I just showed you, but still it is heavy. These are the Chevy car mats that I showed you last week that I purchased at the garage sale for $5. Wound up selling it for $50. So it's not something that you want to put in a poly mailer because the rubber is too heavy and would rip through it. However, I do like to wrap it in a big oversized poly mailer like this. This is just one of many uses of these big oversized ones. I'll put the link to it down below in the description section if you're interested in getting those through Amazon. Just very helpful, these oversized poly mailers. So I put them in there, wrap it up, tape it up, and I put it inside this big box, and then I look at what are my shipping options for it. It's going to Alabama, and it weighs 8 pounds 4 ounces. The box size is 20 inches by 13 by 4 inches. If I were to try to ship it from Syracuse to Alabama with those dimensions and that weight, with the United States Postal Service, both the priority mail option and the parcel post option would cost me around $20. So I don't want to do that, because if I go to FedEx, I have better options available to me. Now, if you remember, the CD player that I just showed you, the best option there was the home delivery option through FedEx. However, for this one, home delivery would cost $15.15, but FedEx Smart Post for this item, which was more expensive for the other item that I just showed you, but for this item, FedEx Smart Post costs $12.11. So guess which one I'm going to pick. This one's going out FedEx Smart Post. So that's why you want to give yourself the flexibility when you list the item to just keep it general for economy, because this one winds up going out economy. The other one winds up going out home delivery, and the person's going to get it faster. So again, leave yourself that flexibility, and you could just see here through this example how you know, just depending on the weight, depending on where it's going, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And there's other examples that, you know, I could show you over time where priority mail would be the best option, or where parcel post will be the best option. It just depends. So I hope that this video was helpful in showing you different ideas and strategies on how you could pack and ship and select which options to use for giving yourself that flexibility and to get that item out to the customer in a way that's not going to break the bank. You know, even with you know, the $26 in shipping for the big bulky CD player, I purchased it for $10. I sold it for $175. Even when you factor in the seller fees, that's well over $100 in profit for that item. So you know, just keep that in mind in terms of something that should be on your list of things to look for when you go out, because it can be done. You just have to make sure you have the supplies on hand to be able to handle it. That's it. So again, hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure you hit the like button. If you want other reselling tips and strategies and techniques and hints, come to my Facebook group. It's the Facebook Reselling Resource Center. The link is down below in the description section. Just you know, hit the link, hit join, and that will send me a request. And if everything looks okay with your profile, you are in. We have almost 1,400 members at this point. It's a very positive group, and I think you'll really like it. So come on by, check it out. We just ran our first contest in which I purchased something from one of our members. So we're doing some fun, cool things like that as well. Other things are, just make sure if you have a comment or a question for me that you put that down below. I cannot possibly show you all the various options of shipping out big bulky items with one video. I plan on making multiple videos over time about this, so I could give you different ideas and strategies depending on the item, including the double boxing approach that I want to do at a later point. Lastly, if you like this video and you like the content that you're seeing here on this channel, there's almost 200 videos at this point. Please make sure you support the channel by subscribing. That's very important. It helps to increase the visibility of the different videos when people search for things, and so that helps establish the credibility of the channel, which is important as we try to build it up. So thank you very much for sticking around if you watched this far, and I'll see you at the next video. Take care.